Hey guys, Christine here from Portable Entrepreneur. Today I'm going to be diving deep into Google Search Console. So if you're brand new to Google Search Console or you've set it up but you really just don't know what to do with it, today we're going to look at not only how to set it up, but we're also going to take a look at some advanced strategies to help you maximize Google Search Console to actually help you rank higher in Google. So if that sounds good, stay tuned. The very first thing we're going to need to do in order to make use of Google Search Console is, of course, to add our website and get it set up. So that is what we're going to do. Now, Google Search Console refers to a website as a property, as you'll see. So what you're going to want to do is log into Google Search Console using the Google account that you want associated with your website or property. So if you already have another account like Google Analytics, for example, set up, you can use that same Google account. Now, the first step in setting up your website is once you log in, you're going to see this screen, and this is where you're going to add your property. If you have other websites associated with your Google Search Console account, when you log in, you're going to see a dashboard that looks like this. And in the upper left-hand corner, you can select from the property list, and at the bottom, select Add Property. And as you can see, it takes you to the same options we had just a moment ago. So what we're going to do is we can select between a domain or URL prefix. So if you select the domain, you are going to need to verify your domain, and this is for either a domain or URL prefix. However, when you select the domain option, you're going to need to verify your domain using DNS verification. So what we'll do is we'll pop in the domain name. We will strip out HTTPS or HTTP and just have the plain old domain name there. Click continue. So as you can see, it's going to check to see if your domain has been verified, and it gives you the option to verify your domain using a DNS record. So what I want you to do is to log into wherever you have registered your domain, GoDaddy, Namecheap, SiteGround, InMotion Hosting, wherever you've registered your domain, then you need to copy this TXT record into your DNS configuration there. If you are not sure about that, or if you want to try it out and you just need help going through that, if you click on the little link here for full details, it will take you to the Google Search Console help page, and it gives you a little video and walkthrough instructions there. But if it sounds like I'm speaking a foreign language to you when I start talking about all of this, you can also try a URL prefix property. So what we're going to do is we want to paste in our domain there, and we will need to put in the HTTP or HTTPS on this side and click continue. When we do this, we're going to have a number of ways that we can go about verifying the site. So the first option that Google is going to give us is an HTML file. Now, as you can see, that's the first option here, and all we have to do is click to download the file and then upload it to the website. And then we'll come back here to verify that Google can see the file, they're happy with it, and that we've proved we own the domain, or at least have access to it through the website owner. Once the website has been verified, you do have to leave the file there. You can't go back and delete it. It needs to stay there. So what you would do is simply log into your cPanel that you'll have access to through your web host. Find out where your website is housed. Simply click on upload, upload the file. It will upload there, and then you'll be able to come back here and click verify. Now, there are some other ways here, and I want to go through a couple of these just so you can pick the one that seems the easiest to you. The next one is an HTML tag, and as you'll see here, they're going to give you the tag, and what they want you to do is copy this tag, and then they want you to paste it in the head section before the body section in the code. Now, if you're like, I don't know how to code, I don't know where that is, what that means. If you are using a page builder, if you're using, Divi or one of the themes from Elegant Themes, so you're using the Divi page builder, you're using Thrive themes, any of those good ones out there, you'll be able to go into the settings. You can add code to the head section there. So I can just go ahead and add that in and save the changes. So once that's saved, I can go ahead and click verify. I'll do that in just a minute. But you also have the option here if you signed in using the same Google Analytics account. Again, if you've added in the code, you can go ahead and verify it that way. Same thing with Google Tag Manager. I'll leave some links that may be helpful in the description below, including the login link here and other information you may want to check out a little bit later as well. So since I added this in, I'm going to go ahead and click verify. So just go ahead and choose the option that is easiest to you. If you feel overwhelmed by any of this, if you need to get someone else to do it for you, it literally will take them a minute to log in and do it, so you can get this done very inexpensively. So now, as you can see, ownership has been verified using the HTML tag, and we also, just like with the HTML file, we need to keep this tag added so we don't lose our verification status, which we don't want. So now we can go ahead and go to the property. All right, you are officially in and you have set up your property in Google Search Console, but we want to go ahead and give Google as much information as we possibly can about the website. Now, don't get me wrong, Google is very smart and they can figure out a lot of information, but why leave them to guess when we can just simply provide them the information? Now, if you log into Google Search Console and it looks a little different than this, don't panic. A lot of this same information is still there, or the options are still there. Sometimes they just move menu items around or make the console here or the dashboard look a little bit different. For some reason, Google likes to switch it up all the time, but you can still follow along here. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go down to international targeting. And this is going to allow us to tell Google which country the website is based in. So we'll go ahead and select the target users in checkbox here. And if it's United States, as they're guessing, great. Otherwise, you can select the correct country and click save. And that's it. Now you're done. Now, if you don't do this, of course, Google is going to be able to go to your website. They'll look what address do you have listed there. They'll see where are you getting most backlinks from. Are you getting most of your backlinks from Australia or Germany or the United States? And that will help clue them into where your website may be targeting, where it's located. They can look at where you're hosting your website, if you're writing content in English or Spanish or German. And there's other ways that they can really target this. But this obviously only takes 5 seconds to do, and you are done. Now, as you can see on the dashboard, there is no data, and that is perfectly normal. You're going to want to come back in a day or two and check just to make sure that Google Search Console is in fact tracking your information here. Now, if you use Google Analytics, which hopefully you are, you know that years ago they stopped telling everyone what keywords people were using to find your website. So if you go into Google Analytics and you look at the keywords there, most of them are bundled in this section called not provided, which is very, very frustrating. But the good news is that you can actually use Google Search Console to start to uncover what some of those keywords actually are. So in order to do this, we're going to want to connect Google Search Console to our Google Analytics account. And in order to do that, we need to pop over to Google Analytics. In the bottom left-hand corner, click Admin. Now you're going to see a few columns here. We're going to go over to the middle column, which is Property, and select Property Settings. Now here we're going to scroll pretty much all the way to the bottom, and we will see this section in Search Console, and we'll click Adjust Search Console. Now there's nothing listed here, no properties or anything. So what we want to do is click on the Add button. And this is going to pull in any of the accounts that are associated with your Google Search Console account. So we'll go ahead and select that and click Save. It says you are about to save a new association. Any existing Search Console association for this web property will be removed, but that doesn't exist. So we'll go ahead and click Save there. Now, once you're done with that, it automatically brings you back to Search Console, and you have now linked the two accounts, which is great. Now, when you go into your analytics account now, you're going to be able to go over here to the acquisition section, and you'll see Search Console listed under there. So now here you'll see all of the information that you're going to get. You'll get landing pages, which is here is giving us the number of impressions and number of clicks. So this can help you improve your titles and your descriptions there that appear in search results. So if you're seeing a high number of impressions, but a very low number of clicks, Simply updating your title, making it more compelling, can help drive more traffic from web pages that are already ranked. So that's a great way to quickly get some additional traffic. Now you also get countries, and this is going to give you impressions, click-through rate, all of these positions based on the different countries. So that's going to be really helpful if you have a website that is targeting different countries, or it doesn't really matter where the traffic is coming from. This website in particular really only targets the US, and even within the US, a very small area. So this isn't really going to be helpful to them in particular, but if your website targets people all over the globe, then that can be really helpful. Now you'll get some more information on devices that are being used here, but the most important really here is queries. Now the information here is where you're going to start to find keywords. So if you want to see what is already working for your website, come over here to Analytics, go to the Search Console account and check on queries, and now you've uncovered some additional keywords. A great benefit to using Google Search Console is that Google will actually let you know if your website has any security issues. Now they're detecting these things very quickly, and they don't want to rank any websites or web pages that have any security issues or that has malware being added or a site that has been hacked. And they want webmasters to be taking care of these types of issues very quickly. So one thing that you can do inside the console is go over here to security and manual actions and select security issues. Now it's going to tell you if they found any security issues on your website, but here is no issues detected. Now, one of the good things about having Google Search Console is that if there are any security issues that pop up later, or your site has been hacked, or they notice anything out of the ordinary that needs to be addressed before they have to take any action, they'll send you an email. So it never hurts to come through here as you're checking your other information and double check, but you can also keep an eye out for any emails so that you can take care of any of those issues quickly. All right, the next thing we want to do is to help Google index our pages. So what we're going to do is we are going to create and submit a sitemap. So we're going to head over to the index section and click on sitemaps. So as you'll see here, there are no submitted sitemaps. So what we want to do is submit one. Now, the first thing to do is to check, do you even have one? So what you can do is pop over to your browser, type in your URL, /sitemap.xml. That is usually the format. So you'll see here has the URL, and then we can type in sitemap.xml, and we would be able to submit that, assuming the file actually exists. So I know that this file does not exist here. If you are using any SEO plugins, like if you're using Yoast, for example, that one in particular does create a sitemap for you. So you want to check to make sure that it doesn't already exist there if you're using something like that. Otherwise, you can go ahead and create one, which is what we'll do now. Now, if you have a very small website, to be honest, you probably don't even need a sitemap. However, it absolutely can cause no harm at all whatsoever, so why not submit it? If you have a larger website, like the one we do here, for instance, which I know has over 1,100 blog posts, there are different pages for events that I know the site is actually currently cleaning up. They're going to be getting rid of some of those, but it is a very large site. Same if you have an e-commerce store that has lots of products, for example. This, you really want to make sure that you have a sitemap to help Google index all those pages. So if you have up to 500 pages, so 500 pages or less, you can use a free tool like the SEO Spider tool from Screaming Frog, and they will create that for you. There's also a site called XML Sitemaps, and they will create it for you as well. Now, if you have more than 500 pages, well, you're going to need to either create this manually, which would be pretty awful, or you can just pay for one of these tools and they will create it for you. So what we would do here is XML Sitemaps. We'll just pop in the URL and click start. Now it's going to start adding different pages to the queue, as you'll see here in a second. It's going to tell you based on that queue how much time is left. Typically, it starts adding a small amount of pages to the queue as it starts going through the site itself and pulling in pages. So you'll see here it has about 4 minutes remaining and it has 42 pages queued. Now, because the site is so much longer, I know it's still going to be queuing more and more pages, and this time is going to go up. So depending on the site size is really how long this is going to take. It could take anywhere from a minute to a few minutes if you have a smaller site, up to maybe 15 or 20 minutes for a larger site, which is probably what this one is going to take. Now, once this is done, it's going to take you to a page like this that says download your XML sitemap file. You'll simply click that to download it, and what you're going to have is a file that looks like this. Now, I highly, highly encourage you to look through this XML sitemap, even if it doesn't seem fun. And the reason is because you want to make sure that Google is not indexing, or at least you're not asking Google to index pages that you don't want it to index. So if there are any admin pages, if there's any member pages, anything that wouldn't necessarily be a landing page you would put into Google search results, you want to go ahead and take that out here. So just looking at these real quick, these are probably all places that they want, or pages rather that they want, but going through, they have a lot of events, and these events are over. These are in the past. And these really just don't need index. It doesn't do anything for them. And it's really just going to slow down the site. I know they're working on taking a lot of these old events out. So that's something that we would want to go and clean up. So what you can do is open this in any text editor. And let's say we didn't want this URL right here. We want to highlight everything from the opening URL to the end URL right here and delete that section, and that will delete that URL from your XML sitemap. And that's all you need to do. You'll save that. And now if you are in your dashboard here, you'll notice, as we were doing before, you simply enter the URL and submit it. That means you have to actually upload the file. So yep, we got to go back over to our web host, into our cPanel, into the file manager, find where your website files are located, and then we got to upload that file. So that's what we'll do now. We'll go in here and get that sitemap and upload it. Now, I've already uploaded this file, but that will upload that file there, and then we can come back here and we can click on submit. Just make sure this matches your file name here. Okay, and then we're going to click on submit. Now, what it's going to say is Google will periodically process it, look for changes, and you'll be notified if anything goes wrong in the future. That's a good thing about Google Search Console is you will be notified if anything is wrong, if there's any errors, if there's any issues, anything Google doesn't like. So this is why we're going through this process here. But when we add a sitemap, this is also going to allow us to come back to our dashboard once Google has time to go through it and index pages to see how many pages they actually index, what pages they don't index, and any problems that they're having in indexing some pages. So this is why we want to check for this. So we'll be able to come back and make sure that they have been able to crawl our sitemap. All right, you have now successfully completed the steps to set up your Google Search Console account. So far you have added your property, you have set the target country, connected your Google Analytics account to the Google Search Console account, checked for security issues, and added your sitemap. So now I've waited a day or two, which if you're not seeing all of the data as you click through some of these reports in here, well, then you want to make sure you wait a couple of days at least, and that way you can come back and take a look at what Google is telling you, what they found out so far. Now, this is not just a one-time account setup and you never look at it again. Otherwise, you're not going to be getting the most benefit out of it, which is going to help you rank your website even higher. So what we want to do now is we want to look at some of the areas that are going to help you improve SEO. So the first thing we want to do is we want to head over to our coverage report. This is under the index section and you click on coverage. Now the coverage report is going to tell you basically which URLs Google has indexed and which they have not. So you're going to be able to make sure that everything looks good. So there's 4 sections that go across the top here. The first one is the error section. This one is going to tell you how many pages were not indexed because there was an error. So then you can go fix those. The second one is valid with warning, and this one is going to tell you which pages have been indexed, but there's an issue, and Google wants you to know about it so you can have those addressed. So you definitely want to make sure if there's anything appearing here that you take care of those. Next up, you have valid. This simply means the pages were indexed and no issues there. And then you have the excluded, which are the pages that were not indexed, but it's probably because that's the way you have set it up. So what you want to look for are these 4 numbers here, and you don't want to just look, but make sure they're actually correct. So even if something is appearing, for instance, in the valid section, we want to make sure that that's meant to be. So knowing this particular site, this is probably very, very high. And it's likely, as I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of event pages that they had. And it would be best if we had less event pages that were added in there because those are in the past. It's not going to be useful to anybody to see those in search results. So there's no point in Google indexing those. Now, in the excluded section, what we want to do is we want to go into this excluded section here, and we want to make sure, are all of the pages that are excluded intentional? Do we really want them to be excluded, or are there any important pages that should be included there? Same with valid. Are there any pages that we do not want to have indexed and we want to have them excluded? So as you see, each one of these numbers is going to tell us something very important. So let's start off looking at just the first one here. So whichever one we highlight, it's going to give us the information for that. You obviously saw that here on the impressions, but going down here, this is going to give us the details. So we have one page that is giving us an error. Now there's all types of errors that we can have. We can have 404 errors that are page not found. Those are pretty easy to figure out if the page is really not there. This could be a crawl issue, which could be a number of issues. So when Google went to look at the page, they were unable to crawl it for some reason. And then we have this one here, which is a server error. So what we can do is we can figure out, did Google go to this particular page and the server have an issue and it just timed out at that particular moment and there's actually nothing wrong? Or is there something else going on with the server that we need to figure out? So what we'll do here is we can simply click on the error, and what will happen is, in this case, it's only giving us one error, which is good. But you could have 50 errors, 100 errors, 200 errors. If you have a lot of errors, don't be highly alarmed. It could be one fix that is really going to address all of those errors that are there. So it really just depends on what it is. So if we scroll down here, it's going to give us the URL of the page that is having the problem. So now we're going to be able to check it out. And then once we take a look at it, we figure it out, we make sure it's fixed, then we can scroll up here and click on the validate fix option. This tells Google, hey, we've looked at it, we've addressed it, please go back and try again. So that way they will go ahead and index the page, assuming that you do want it to be indexed. So what we'll do here is we'll go back down to this URL. Now you can see there's a couple of options here. We can copy this URL if we just want to go out to our browser, check the page, see what's going on. This one will open it, and this will inspect the URL for us. So that's something that's very helpful. If we click on the URL, it's always going to pop up a box over here on the right-hand side, and Google is going to give you any of the Google Search Console tools that are going to help you in figuring out what in the world is going on and why are you experiencing this error. So it is recommending that what we do is we go ahead and we take a look at our robots.txt file. Now this is the file that's simply telling Google which pages or directories on our website we want them to index and which ones we do not. So what we can do is simply click on that. It's going to open up a new window here with a robots.txt file. This is going to tell us what is currently on the website, and really what we're blocking here is the admin file. So there's nothing that's going to block this particular URL here, and you can see that it's allowed. So that's not causing the issue. As you can see, it's going to help you go through the process of elimination to weed out what is not the issue. So that way, if you can fix it, you do want to try to fix it, it'll help you figure out what the issue is so you can go in and fix it yourself. Or if you want to bring someone else on to try to fix an issue for you, you want to connect with a web developer, at least you can tell them the specific issue. Now, if you have a 404 error, for instance, Google's still going to tell you to test your robots.txt file. They'll have you look at the search result to make sure the page is actually coming up. You could resubmit it to the index. You can fetch as Google. So there's some different options that they're going to give you, again, just to try to figure out what is wrong. If you have a 404 error, quickest one is try to view it and make sure that the page does actually come up. So another thing that you can do is come over here to the URL inspection. And as you see, it highlights the box here at the top. It says inspect any URL. So you can go ahead and pop in the URL that's giving you any trouble, that's giving you an error. And this is going to help you, again, figure out what is the issue. So this is what's really neat about Google Search Console. It's not only telling you what issues are there, and it's Google is the one that's telling you, so it's very important to listen to this, but it's also going to help you figure out what the error is, because Google doesn't want you to have errors. They want you to get this resolved. So let's go back here for a second. We're going to go back and look at the next section here, which is valid without warning. Now, I don't have any specific errors here for valid without warning. However, this is going to be the very same process. It's going to tell you what the errors are. You're going to be able to click through. It may tell you that there are 2 or 3 different types of warnings, but for each one, you can click through, see the specific URLs that are having trouble. So let's say that a page was indexed, but there's something going on. There's an error that it's getting that it doesn't like, and so it wants you to look at it. So if you see any URLs as you're going through these different reports that you don't want to have indexed, what you can do is you can go in, you can add in the no index tag into that particular page. What you can also do is come over here to removals. And then as you're over here in the removal section, you can go ahead and submit a request for them to remove a specific URL from the search results. Now this will work for about 6 months. So in that time, you need to address what you want to have happen. You want to make sure that you are no indexing the page, you are blocking the page, redirecting the page, whatever it is that you want to have happen with that particular URL. Now heading back over here to the coverage report, what we want to do now is we want to take a look at the valid URL. So one of the reasons why we want to look at this is because this is going to tell us a lot of information. Right now, as the page is just set up, it's going to tell us a couple of things. One, that 250 pages have been submitted and indexed, but these almost 11,000 pages were not included in the sitemap, which means there needs to be a change directly on the website to keep Google from indexing those pages if we do not want those pages indexed. So again, we're going to be able to click through and we're going to be able to see a list of these particular pages. So as I suspected, we have event. These are a lot of event pages, and I bet you if I keep going, let's see if we can show a lot more here. It is going to be a lot of events. Now, some of them, they don't say event or they have page, places. So these might be a little bit different, but this is telling us Google is seeing these and there's a lot of events that we don't need them to index. So this is something that we need to make sure that we're taking care of. Now, if you are coming back, which you should be, if you're coming back to take a look at what's going on in your coverage report, you're going to want to look for a couple of things. One, you can look for, do the numbers still look good? Have I seen a big drop off in pages, or have I seen a big increase in pages? If you're not removing any pages or you haven't changed anything and you see a big drop off, well, something's wrong. You need to go in and look at why suddenly are these pages being blocked, or why are they not being indexed? It could be that something was going on with the website, or a web developer went in and he accidentally blocked some of those pages, messing around with the robots.txt file, or maybe a no index tag was accidentally added. So you want to double check. Same thing with a big increase. If you've seen a big increase, but you haven't been adding any content, well, that's definitely a red flag that something's going on. So this could be that pages that were previously blocked or were suddenly unblocked unintentionally. There's a lot of different reasons why this could happen, but we definitely want to check. Now, lastly, we want to go back to the coverage report and we want to look at the excluded URLs. So now here you can see that there are a number of them for a number of different reasons. They were crawled. We have over 5,000 that were crawled but not indexed. Some that were duplicate. Some had a no index tag. So this is what we were talking about. And we want to make sure that these pages actually are meant to have the no index tag. So as you can see, there's some that were not found here, and these are the specific reasons why they were not indexed. So we'll take a look here just as an example, as the pages having the no index tag. So this way we can see, okay, well, these are the events. So we wanted the events to be excluded. So this is good. We want them to keep that no index tag, and all looks good there. So it's likely in this section as we're looking through that we can just leave this one. So as long as it looks good to you, there's nothing to worry about with that there, because it's not reporting an error. Google's not telling you that you need to do anything with this. It's just telling you what's happening. So if you decide you need to correct it, then you can do so. So as you can see, the coverage report is extremely important. You want to double check this as soon as you get it set up. 1 to 2 days after you get it set up, make sure all the information is there. But then you should be coming back on a pretty regular basis, come back every month or so and double check that nothing has changed so you can stay on top of any issues and it doesn't cause any harm with your rankings. Let's go ahead and get into what is probably the most exciting part of Google Search Console. And this is the performance part that we'll see right here towards the top. As the name suggests, this tool is going to tell you exactly how your pages are performing in Google. And who doesn't want to know that? So this is going to give you all the information that you really need to figure out where to start to get higher rankings and to get more traffic from where your site is already starting. So this is really, really helpful information. So I want to walk through a couple examples here of how you can actually play around with this. So at the top here, just like the last report, you're going to see 4 boxes. You have the total clicks, the number of people who actually have seen your web page pop up in search results and then clicked on it, the total number of impressions. This is the number of times that people have actually seen your web page listed in search results, and the average click-through rate, which you can see here is not good. But what's exciting about that is that means that there's a lot of opportunity here, and that's what we're going to look for. And the average position for the keywords is 29.4 for this particular site. So as you can see, you already have a lot of information here. So there's a couple of things that we can do here. As we go down here, you'll see that we have the number of clicks, the number of impressions. We can see that this one, for instance, was shown in search results 545 times, but only 6 people clicked on it. So we want to figure out what's going on with that, because if it's already being shown a lot, that means can we just make some tweaks so that more people click on this, and then that means instant traffic. You can work on this today and start seeing new traffic in right away. So what we're going to look for here is we're going to unclick clicks, and we're going to highlight here the click-through rate, which is CTR, and the average position. So now as we scroll down here, you're going to see those columns. So what we want to do here is we want to look for really 2 sections. We want to look for those pages that are ranking in the top 5, and then those that are ranking 5 and below, so we can start seeing if there is a page ranking in the top 5, well, is there anything that we could do to boost a little bit higher? Is the click-through rate really good? And if it is, can we go ahead like this one, if this is 11.3%. Now that's a brand name, so that's not really the best example here, but this is getting a 50% click-through rate. But it's not going to drive a lot of traffic because it's only getting 6 impressions. So that's not a big search term there. But we want to look at the ones that have the high conversion rate that we can maybe add some additional content to that page. We can pick up an extra backlink to that page. We can do something to help it improve and go up a little bit higher. For all the ones below, we can still do the same thing, but we're also looking for some of that low-hanging fruit, which are the keywords that are ranking, but they're just not getting the clicks. And that's how we're going to get our fast traffic. So what we want to do here is we want to click on this little filter bar. Now, I'll show you an example here, but this is one you'll want to go play with, and you can search by different things here. And this is going to give you all kinds of different data so you can figure out where to start. So what I like to look for is the position. So we'll start with 5 and below. So once we click on position, up here we can select greater than from the drop down menu, and we want 5 and above. So we have to put 4.9 here and done. Now we can see there's one filter, so we want to add one more. And you'll see all the positions down here have changed so that nothing is below 5. Now we're going to look for the click-through rate. And if we look at this chart here, we can see that position 5 is expected to get about 7.4% click-through rate. So this is how, if your question is, what is a good click-through rate? Well, that depends on your position. So if you have a first position, you're expected to get around 34%. And again, these are averages here. Number 3 would be 11.5. You want to drop down to 6. Then you're at 5.1%. If you're in the 10th position, you're looking at 2.6%. So that will give you an idea of what to expect. So if we're looking at 5 and below, we should be at least at 7.4%. So we're going to look for any number that is smaller than 7.4. Now, as you can see, we have all of the positions below 5 and we have low click-through rates. So now there's a couple of things we can do. One, we can go ahead and look at what the queries are, and we can go out and find the pages that are ranking for that particular keyword and see how can we, where it is positioned right now, just start getting more traffic. As you can see here, there are nearly 150 impressions for this page in search results, but we're getting less than 1% click-through. So if this is the 8th position, thereabouts, we should be getting about 3.3. So we'd be getting a lot more traffic, at least, if we did nothing to increase the page's ranking other than just tweak it in search results. So this is things like going in and changing the title and the description to make it more engaging, make people curious, make sure that they feel like they're going to get the exact answer they need about the particular query. So what we want to do is we can go out to Google, we can put in that search term, and we can see what else is coming up. And this is going to give us a good idea of what we're up against and be able to make tweaks to be the best one there. But it's also going to help us look at just the titles, just the descriptions, so we can make sure that those are going to outperform the other ones. Then later we can go back and say, okay, now how can we also increase the ranking? So then you're getting even a lot more traffic. But again, we're trying to look for results we can get right now. Now, if you click on any particular query here, so we'll try this one. You notice it's going to add it to the filter bar up here at the top. We can see again the total impressions, clicks, average click-through rate, and average position. So this is, we'll say about 9. So we should be getting roughly about 3% click-through. So we're a little low there, and that can be improved. Now, if we go down to queries, we see the same query. We can go over to pages, and this is going to tell us which specific page is ranking. So now we can just copy that page, go look at it on our website, and start looking at how we can improve this. Now, another thing that we can do here is go ahead and copy this URL. This is just an example. You can do this for any page, but let's say you want to know what a page ranks for. What keywords does that page actually rank for? So up here in the top, we're going to get rid of this query here for a second. And we're going to hit new because we want to add a new filter. And we're going to search for a particular page. We're going to pop in the URL here and click apply. So now what we're going to want to do is come down to this particular page and we will go to queries. So now you can see all of the keywords, and it looks like there are 22 different keywords that this one page ranks for. So by us improving this page, we can get a lot more traffic. We can see what position we are ranking for in a lot of these different keywords. They're all very similar, but as you can see, for all of these, the click-through rate is 0. So we really could do a lot to improve that. But some of these aren't getting that much traffic, so that's not necessarily ones that we would want to start with. We'd definitely be more interested in improving this one that has nearly 550 impressions, this one almost 100, this one 16. So we want to go with some of the higher numbers over one that only has 5 impressions. That's not going to get us a substantial amount of traffic really quickly. Now, just a couple quick more things that I want to show you about the performance report, and then you can go in here and play around all you want with this. One thing you want to notice is that there are 16 months of data. Google wasn't always so generous, but they give us 16 months of data to go back, to look at, to compare, which is really great. So what I recommend that you do is look at where you're at now, of course, and prioritize what is going to help you get the most traffic based on the number of impressions and the low click-through rate that you could easily improve. That's going to be your starting point. Then go ahead and make a change and then let it go. Google's going to need a few days just to re-index that, get that appearing in search results. Once those few days have passed, you want to start about a week or two countdown, because you need to have enough data to really test to see, are the changes that you made going to make an impact. Now, if you have a low impression keyword, well, you might need more time. But if you have one like this one here that had 500 something impressions, well, you might only need a week or two to really see if that's going to make a difference here. So what we want to do here is once we have done that change and we've waited a week or two, we can come back to compare. Okay, so now we're going to be able to put in the last, let's say 7 days, 14 days versus what you're looking at now. So we can say, okay, in the last 2 weeks, I want to compare that to the 2 weeks prior. And then you're going to go into the particular URL. So you remember we left that up here. And then see, what is the data telling you? Are you getting more click-throughs? Is your traffic improving from that? Are you getting more impressions? And again, as you make some more substantial changes and you start to see your pages rank a little bit higher, well, you can track all of that in here too. So this is really, really amazing. And if you want quick wins for SEO, well, there you go. This is it. Now that you have looked at the pages you're going to start tweaking to start getting some instant traffic in, let's go to the next thing you can do, which is down here under the legacy tools. This is one of the older tools available. You click on links here. Now, this is another great section of the Search Console. You're going to get a lot of good information about the links going in and out of your website here. So what you're going to be able to look at are the external links here. These are the third-party websites that are pointing to your website. They're linking to you. And these are the internal links. So what pages that are on your website are linking to other pages on your website. That's really good for SEO. So we definitely want to use this information. We can see where some of the backlinks are coming from. We're going to be able to see the anchor text that's being used. So this is going to be really, really helpful information here. So if there is a particular page that you want to rank, you want to make sure that other pages on your website are linking to that page. And if they're not, well, you got to set up some of those pages. So a good thing to do is come over here to your top link pages. And this is going to show you how many pages are actually linked. So if it's a low number, then you can go ahead and add in some internal links. So we can see here, some of these have very high numbers, so that's also something we can take a look at. But let's just pick one of these here. Let's try this one. So now this is going to give us a list of all of the pages that are linking to this page right here. So that way, if we want to change any of that, we can. If we see that there's not enough pages, we're going to be able to go in and add those, of course, too. So now with the internal links, we can shift over to the external links. So we can look here at which pages are receiving a lot of links, and we want to make sure that it's balanced out. We want to make sure that we're getting links to the pages that are most important to us, that we most want to link here. So we see that there is a very big difference, especially between the home page and just a venue. So that's something we want to look at and make sure that that page is actually supposed to have that many links, because, well, it's probably not supposed to have 4,000 links. So that's something we're going to want to go in and definitely take a look at. So this is going to help make sure that our backlink profile stays clean as well. We can look at the different websites that are linking to the website. This can help us go out and find other places maybe to promote content. This can help us find ways to partner possibly with some of them. And also just again, to make sure that we have a clean backlink profile. And we're also diversifying across a large number of domains as well. Now we can also look at the anchor text. This is the text that people highlight and link to from their website to ours. So we definitely want to make sure that this is also diversified, that it also looks natural. So in just a couple of minutes here, you can figure out where you need to add in more internal links, and you can get a very good look at your backlink profile and see what needs some work. All right, moving right along. As we've known for many years now, Google has a mobile first index, which means if your website is not 100% optimized for Google, well, you gotta get that in order right away. Now, one of the great things that we can do over in Google Search Console is we can see if Google thinks that we have any mobile usability issues. And we can do that by going over here to the enhancement section and clicking on mobile usability. Now we're going to see here the pages that have an error when it comes to mobile usability, and we've got to get that fixed. And we will see the number of pages that either have no errors or just have very few errors here. So we can see for this particular site that we are good to go, but what we can look at down here are a couple of the errors. So if you do have pages that have errors, for instance, it will tell you down here the text is too small to read. And just as with other sections of the console, you're going to be able to click through and it will give you a list of the specific pages where they want you to increase the text size. Same thing here, if there are clickable elements too close together and it can be confusing for mobile users, then they're going to want you to adjust that. And again, they're going to give you the list of all of the pages here. So what's really helpful about mobile usability is you're going to get a list by clicking through on any of the errors of the pages that have this particular type of issue, and you're going to find out how to actually go about fixing those so you have a more mobile user-friendly site. Now there are a couple of other interesting things you can do here. If you head on over to the URL inspection, which is again this top bar here, and you pop in one of the pages on your website, Google is going to go out and pull this web page from its index. This is going to tell you if this specific URL is mobile friendly, and you'll see we can click through here and you can view the crawled page. So this is going to pull up the information here. You'll get the HTML version here. You can get a screenshot of this, and it's also going to tell you some interesting information like page resources. So we don't want to have too many page resources here, but it's also going to tell us in this case there's 94 page resources, but 17 of those couldn't be loaded. So we may not want to have all of those blocked, especially if Google is looking at the mobile version. So that's something we need to take a look at here. If we want to get a screenshot, we can use the test live URL here, as you can see. And what will happen is Google is going to go out and actually take a screenshot of the mobile version of your site. That way you can make sure Google sees it the same way you do. Now we're going to take a look here real quick also at the performance section. Now I know we covered this before, but I want to take a look at the versions here of the website. So we talked earlier on about improving your click-through rate, improving the titles and the descriptions and how your pages are actually displaying in search results. So what we can also do is say, well, is there a difference between the click-through rate for those clicking on desktop and mobile? That way we can take a look at how we can improve them for both if those numbers are very off. So let's say, for instance, what we want to do here, so we want to have the average click-through rate and the total impressions here. And what we'll do here is we're going to create a new filter. We'll select device, and we want to compare mobile versus desktop. We'll click apply there. And now, as you can see, it compares all of our numbers. We have more impressions on desktop than we do mobile, but our average position is almost twice as high as it is on desktop. And we also have a higher click-through rate on mobile. So as we go down here, we're also going to be able to take a look at those queries that we looked at before, and then again, compare the numbers for each particular query. So here, if we're looking at Billy Goat Trail kid friendly, we have 6 impressions on mobile, but we only get 1 on desktop. And then we can see what the conversion rate is there. But let's look at something a bit higher here. We have Crooked Run Orchard. Mobile impressions 633, where desktop is only getting 267. But we might be getting the same amount of traffic from those queries because on desktop we're getting a 2.2% click-through rate, where on mobile we're only getting 0.3%. So again, we want to see how much title and description actually appears on the mobile search result versus the desktop to see if we need to reword that a little bit or make it more engaging on mobile so we can benefit from more of that traffic. For seeing If our web page is getting 633 impressions, we could get a lot more traffic, especially if we're only getting 0.3% click-through rate. So this is a great way to make sure that your click-through rate is working, and especially as you look at how much traffic you're getting from desktop versus mobile, you can figure out what you need to really prioritize here. Let's take a look at one last quick piece about mobile usability here. We'll go over here to Core Web Vitals. Now this is coming from a Chrome user experience report here, and it is reporting 143 poor URLs on the mobile version here. So let's take a look at that report. And again, we have these helpful boxes at the top tell us we have 143 issues, all the same issue here. We have a need improvement section and the URLs that are good. So we can scroll down here and see the issues here. So it's saying that 143 pages have the issue of a load time longer than 4 seconds, which is a problem. So the longer it takes to load, well, that's going to cause problems with user experience, but that's also not good for ranking in Google as well. It's also going to affect your crawl budget, as we'll talk about here in a second as well. So this is where you want to click through and you want to see which pages are really loading slow and be able to figure out what is going on there. Now you can use Google's free Page Speed Insights tool, and that will give you more insight into exactly how long it takes for different pages to load and what specifically on those pages is causing a slow load time. Now we've just about covered most of Google Search Console, so congrats on sticking with this. This is really going to help you rank your website higher and get the most out of this. I want to show you just a couple more really cool things. And one of those is in the URL inspection tool. So what I want to do here is I'm going to pop in, just as an example, a URL of a web page that I don't actually have up yet. But let's say you have just created a new web page, but Google has not yet indexed that page, right? It's brand new. So what you want to do is, if you want Google to index it really quickly, you're going to pop over here to the URL inspection, do what I just did, pop it into the URL bar there, and you're going to see this here. URL is not on Google. The page is not in the index, but not because of an error. So now it's going to show you what they see when they go out and they look for this particular page. You know it's new, they haven't had an opportunity to crawl it, and you want them to index it quickly. So if you've ever wondered, hey, I have a new web page, how am I going to get it indexed quickly? Well, here you go. And we're going to go over here to this section, request indexing. Now, normally this is a button and it's highlighted here, but right now Google has this feature suspended just for a couple of weeks while they are doing some technical updates in the back end. But otherwise, what I can do is simply click on request indexing, and it is going to tell Google to crawl that page, and it's going to get that page indexed quickly. So that is a really good tool to know about. Now, the last thing we're going to take a look at is called the Google Crawl Budget, and this is important. So you're going to scroll down here to the legacy tools and you'll see crawl stats. That's what we're going to head over. So it's going to pop up a new window for us. And this is going to tell us how many of our site pages Google crawls every day. And you'll see it's going to give us a range from the highest to the lowest number of pages. But on average, Google crawls over 1,300 pages on this particular site. Now we know from the index there that there's about 12,000 plus pages, but they're only going through 1,400 pages here a day. So what that means is if you are continually adding new content, or you're updating any of your content and you have a big discrepancy between the number of average crawled pages and the number of actual pages on your website, well, it's going to take Google a really long time to find those pages, index them, or crawl those pages that they have previously and see that there's been any updates so they can adjust their search results accordingly. So that's something we want to keep an eye out for. So if you are seeing that your crawl budget is relatively similar to the number of pages, well, then you really don't have too much to worry about here. Now, another thing that we can look at here is the time spent downloading a page. If they're spending a lot of time crawling the pages, well, they're going to be able to crawl less pages. So one of the ways to increase your crawl budget here is to speed up your website. That's going to help Google crawl it faster. Of course, it's better for users and it's better for SEO. It's going to increase that crawl budget so more of those pages are getting indexed. Now, another way that you can increase this crawl budget that you have up here is to increase the number of backlinks that you have as well. So Google takes a look at the authority of your website, and based on that, they allot a certain amount of crawl budget. So that is why it is important to also continue to work on your authority of your overall site as well. But of course, that does take a little bit of time, but backlinks is going to help you get that bigger crawl budget. Of course, assuming you are looking at those high quality backlinks and not just any old backlink you can get. Now, the last thing that you can do really to improve this crawl rate is to make sure that you are not asking Google to crawl any pages that they don't need to. Now, this is typically more of a problem for the larger websites that are out there. If you have a smaller website, you're probably not going to run into this issue. But if you think about websites that have a search function where that's something very common that users go through, if there are a lot of products, let's say you have a big e-commerce store, then that's something that you really want to look at. And you want to make sure that you are asking Google not to crawl particular pages. So let's say that you have an e-commerce store, and when someone goes to select a product, they can select the color. Can they get it in red and blue and white? Can they select a size, small, medium, large? And how else are they able to filter? Are they able to filter by types of products? Any of that. That's not something that is particularly useful to search results or search engines, but it is useful to the visitors who are on the website. So of course you want that there. So what we can do is back over in our search console here. We want to go back to legacy tools, again, one of the older tools, and we want to go to URL parameters. Now, we have the inspection tool, not the same thing. We want to go to URL parameters here. Again, this is going to open up a new window for us, and we want to add the parameter. Now, they are noting here, which I want to make sure that you are reading, that if you don't understand this, and you don't feel confident in doing this, you may want to get some help, because this can definitely, if you get this wrong, this could mean your pages are going to disappear from search. So not to make you panic, but I don't want you to get this wrong either. So what we can do is, let's say we are filtering by size. Okay, so we would have size as the parameter. This could be size, this could be color, this could be type, whatever it is that are, let's say, the filters for your different products, assuming that's the type of website that you have. Does this parameter change page content seen by the user? Yes, it does. And then you can say no URLs here. So you want this to hide this content. So any URLs that include size there, that content will not show to the Googlebot. Okay, that way they're not going to go through any of the URLs, and that leaves all of the crawl budget that you have for the actual product pages and the more important pages that you have on your website. So you just want to make sure you are using your crawl budget efficiently. So believe it or not, you have successfully walked through Google Search Console. Now you know how to not only just set it up, but now you know what to look for and how to use this to actually increase your rankings and start getting more traffic and better results from your website. If you haven't already, make sure to click the link below in the description to grab a free copy of the Google Search Console checklist. This is just a checklist to help you know specifically what you should be looking for when you come back and do your regular checks, so you make sure that your website stays in good standings and that you're using it to continuously improve your rankings. As we've covered a lot of information here, there are timestamps in the description below as well. So if you ever need to come back to this video as a reference, go ahead and check the description so you can get the timestamps and jump straight to the point you need. If you like this tutorial, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next tutorial, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.